Welcome to 15 minutes of consulting best practices. My name is Maria Isabel Rios, and as you can see, David is not here. He's out on vacation today. Nevertheless, welcome. This is a space where we answer your questions about your consulting firm in a way that is as tactical, as practical as possible. Our answers are informed by our consulting experience and by the work that we do with over 400 consulting firms over the course of many years, right? So please ask your questions as you come into this session. Add your comments, add your thoughts to any answer we give. It makes the discussion richer and it makes it more insightful for everyone. It takes a minute for whatever you write to post so that I can see it. So please go ahead as you come in. And in the meantime, Deidre, can you please pull up the first question that we were asked this week? And this question is from Tyler. Thank you, Tyler, for sending in your question. Tyler, you say, I am trying to source my first paid project of the year from a previous employer. All right. I worked for the company 3.5 years before moving to a new employer. I sent a letter to the current CEO and an email to the Director of Human Resources and Treasurer. None have responded. Okay. I don't know where purchasing power is in this organization or how I should follow up to get work with this organization. Do you have any advice? All right, Tyler, good on you for being in motion. Your approach, though, sounds a lot like cold calling, meaning your connection with a company at this level, right? The folks that you've written to is kind of similar to someone saying they're part of the same alumni association, if you will, right? So they will have a recognition that you worked there for 3.5 years, but they don't know you personally. That's what I can infer from the way you wrote your question. The downside here is that you have different seniority. It also sounds like your approach is not right side up, meaning it's not about them. It's more about you, what you can do, and how you can look to get kind of business from them than it is about their needs and about their problems. So that's a first shift. I would encourage you to be thinking, okay, what do they need and what are their problems in any interactions? And work your way through any internal connections that you have where you can have common contacts. This is very similar to what you would do if you had somebody that it's a second or a third degree connection within your network and you want to get closer to them. So how do you work your way to them? How do you get an introduction eventually to them so that you can actually understand what are their needs, what are their problems, and you can have a level of trust established. Think of building a connection over time, much like you would do with a cold prospect, because it does sound a little bit like that. Okay, Tyler, let me know in the notes if you're live or via messaging, or put it in the comments and we see it, whether this was helpful and it answered your question. All right, Deidre, it seems like we're going to keep going with the questions that were submitted before. Can you please put up a second one? Thank you. Okay, this question is from Pat. Pat says, when the client presents your work to their bosses, then comes back and says, the bosses said we miss X, Y, and Z. Ouch. What do I say? I did what the client asked for, and he didn't give me any access to the bosses. What he wants now is going to be extra work that expands his scope. All right. Thank you, Pat, for your question. And also, good on you for being in a position where you hear these things back. The worst that can happen to any of us as consultants, or one of the worst things, is when the organization thinks that the work should have pointed to X, Y, and Z, and why did you guys not work on that? And nobody tells you, right? So you have that level of trust, and they told you. Now you are in quite a challenging spot to be in, and your contact is also in quite a challenging spot. So empathize first with your contact, right? They're also in a challenging spot and how challenging it is. If the work that they're asking for now is the right work for the original problem, then you can figure out what are ways that you can address it with what you have. It sounds though like you're in a completely different position where the work is out of scope. If that's the case, then you say, look, we could totally do it. However, two things. One, it will be helpful to actually talk to the bosses and see what they're thinking about, what are their needs, where do they say risk, and where do they see the value that's not in the project that you have just done. And also you can put together, number two, right, an addendum that either expands or resets the scope of what you've done. So think about it in framing of this was the original project and the original value we were getting. If that value is delivered, then this is an expansion or a reset of scope. Have that conversation. Try to get to the bosses first. Much like when you're having a context discussion, you always want to get to the decision makers. In this case, try to have a conversation with the folks who are pointing to what are potential blind spots or expansion of scope. All right, Daniel, you're saying additional consideration is that some companies will not hire former employees as consultants. You're right. So you're talking about Tyler's question, and that happens in some instances, particularly if it's clear that you're a solo practitioner and that you're coming in as a consultant, whereas before you were a W-2 employee, right? So one of the things they are mostly looking to make sure is that you don't disguise keeping the same person in the team under a 1099 or an independent contractor agreement. So absolutely, and thank you for putting that on. Appreciate it very much. All right, Deidre, let's do one more question. Thank you. Okay, Matt says, I followed your post-webinar process and it worked. Great. Now I have 13 calls scheduled with new prospects. But now what? How do I handle those calls? Okay, thank you, Matt. Congratulations first. Good job on following the process and setting up the calls. So I'm going to take a little bit of a step back because Matt references our process. And I want to share with you all how Matt got here, right? So what we ask and we suggest is that anytime you're at a conference, you set up meetings with folks that you want to develop deeper connections with. Remember, this is all about connecting. And you do that in the maximum 2 weeks after your conference attendance, particularly if you're on stage, particularly as is the case with Matt, right? Particularly if you had a lot of one-on-one connections but didn't have time to sit down with folks and have deep conversations. Schedule those follow-up conversations and have them be in a relatively short period of time so that you don't lose momentum, right? It's Matt on doing that job and doing it very well. So first thing you do in every call you have, and we suggest not only with these 13 prospects you now have, but with everybody, is to ask what would make this call helpful, useful, and valuable. You basically want to set up the call so that it is a call about them. You'll find that people are curious about why you set up the call, and that's okay. And I'll give you a couple of ideas of how to answer that, right? But the first thing you want to do is come into the call and not make it about you. Make it about them. Same thing when you're meeting with clients, same thing with your meeting with prospects. It shows flexibility about your agenda, and it shows that you're really interested in connecting. So have it be genuine and ask, don't be afraid to ask the question, right? What will be valuable for you? What will be helpful and useful in this call? Folks say, look, what would you like to do? Sometimes, right? Then you say, look, sometimes when we have these sessions, questions come up. So what questions have come up for you, prospect, since the webinar? I love any advice you can provide. And so you make it also an inquiry that allows you to learn and allows you to listen from the folks that attended the webinar. What's valuable for them? What questions have come up? How can you enter a conversation? It is also very legitimate and very helpful if you ask, would you mind telling me about your role and your business overall? Remember, this is a getting to know you conversation. So figure out a bridge so that you can connect your webinar attendance with their agenda and learning about them as well. Okay, so to close, you have two options. If an opportunity came up where you can support your prospects, then make the turn. Say, are you open to having a separate conversation where we discuss if we can support you with XYZ opportunity that came up? If an opportunity did not come up, then also say, you know what, it has been great meeting you. I would like to have another call like this, say in 3 months' time, maybe end of July or beginning of August, right? So you've now created a sequence in which you're in conversation with these folks, and you can develop that relationship over time, which is what you want. So net, if the person is on the phone with you and you have enough in common, useful, valuable conversation for them, that is a very strong tool to maintain that connection and that trust that you started creating at the webinar, to have it increase and deepen so that when they have a need and when they have a project in mind that it's urgent, you will be on their radar. All right, so good on you. Go conquer those 13 conversations that you have coming up, and we look forward to hearing how they went as well. All right, Deidre, it seems I have time for one more question, maybe quickly. Okay, Carol says, I have a contract project manager that I pay to help manage all my project delivery. Good on you, Carol. If you're the Carol, I think you are. It works well, but I wonder if I'm bringing in her in too early, especially since I pay by the hour and she's expensive. Okay, right now I bring her into the loop as soon as I know there will be a context discussion. Is that the right timing? All right, interesting question, Carol. What is the right time to bring in an operation manager? First of all, congratulations on being at the size and having a strong enough process where an operations manager brings value to you and to your firm. And good on you for recognizing that need for infrastructure, right? For support infrastructure. It's always a stretch and it's an investment. Good on you for having made both decisions. Now, back to your question, is it too early? It probably is. It sounds like it is, yes, that you're bringing your project manager in too early. You can wait until you have signature on your project so that you don't overspend. It also sounds like you're the type of firm that once you have a signature, will have a process. If not, that's a good task for your operations manager to come in and figure out what is the process of onboarding and pre-kickoff of a new client. So assuming you have that, your project manager will be able to come in, your operations manager to come in and align all the processes really, really quickly. So don't be shy to wait a little more. Don't be afraid, provided that you have a kind of onboarding and kickoff process established that allows you to get in motion really, really quickly. Give your operations manager a heads up that it's coming. And at this point, pre-signature, that's about it. All right, we're at the 14-minute mark, so there's a couple of things we wanted to share with you. The first one is to thank you for being here. Second one, we will not have a LinkedIn Live any one of the next 2 Mondays. So we'll see you in 3 weeks. If you want to join us, please put Monday Live, the URL that Deidre is sharing, davidafields.com/Monday Live on your calendars. It will bring you to either the recording or the latest one, or this live spot right here. So all you need to do is click and join us, and we'll be here, of course. Also, subscribe to the articles. They're funny, they're insightful, they have a lot of good practical tips that you can follow. And lastly, we're delighted to have you here. Consulting is not about us. It's really about our clients and how we create value and impact for them in a way that it's respectful, considerate, and caring. So embed that into your practice, embed that into your processes, and that's a great contributor to your success. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you in 3 weeks. Bye.